How would you feel if the person who was supposed to welcome you into their family decided to spend the night of your wedding rehearsal dinner tearing you down in front of everyone you love? Imagine standing there, in your beautiful dress, surrounded by your friends and family, while your mother-in-law stands up with a microphone and basically tells the room that you aren't good enough for her son. It was the most humiliating moment of my life, but what she didn't know was that I had a little surprise of my own waiting in the wings. I had a video that showed exactly who she was when the cameras weren't rolling, and I was just waiting for the right moment to hit play. Was I wrong for turning her big gotcha moment into her own public downfall, or would you have done the exact same thing if you were pushed to your breaking point? Let me take you back to the beginning so you can understand how we even got to that night, because this didn't just happen out of nowhere. It all started about 3 years ago when I met Mark. Mark is everything you'd want in a partner: kind, hardworking, and incredibly supportive. But he has one major flaw, and her name is Alina. From the very first time I met her at their family's Sunday brunch, I knew I was in for a long, uphill battle. Alina is the kind of woman who treats her only son like he's a prize to be won, and she made it very clear from day one that I wasn't the one she wanted holding the trophy. She would make these little passive-aggressive comments about everything: my job as a freelance graphic designer, the way I dressed, even the way I laughed. She'd say things like, "Oh, it must be so nice to have a little hobby like drawing to pass the time while Mark does the real work," or "That's an interesting choice of outfit, dear. I suppose it's very trendy for people who don't care about tradition." I tried to play nice for Mark's sake. I really did. I would smile, nod, and ignore the jabs, thinking that eventually she'd see how much I loved him and relax. But as the wedding planning started, her behavior went from annoying to toxic. She tried to take over every single detail. She wanted a traditional church wedding even though Mark and I are both atheists. She wanted a guest list filled with her country club friends we'd never even met. When I told her no, she would go behind my back and call vendors to try and change my orders. I caught her trying to change the floral arrangements to lilies, which I'm deathly allergic to, claiming she just forgot. The tension was building for months, and Mark was caught in the middle. He tried to defend me, but Alina is a master manipulator. She'd burst into tears and talk about how she was just a lonely widow trying to help her son have the perfect day. And Mark, being the good guy he is, would feel guilty. About a month before the wedding, I reached my limit. I was at her house helping her move some boxes when I overheard her on the phone with her best friend, Diane. She didn't know I was in the hallway. She was laughing, saying that I was a low-class gold digger, and that she had a plan to expose me at the rehearsal dinner so Mark would realize his mistake before it was too late. She said she was going to make sure everyone knew the truth about where I came from. My family isn't wealthy. My parents worked multiple jobs to put me through school, and I'm incredibly proud of them. But to Alina, being middle class was a sin. After I heard that, I didn't confront her. Instead, I got quiet. I started paying closer attention. A few days later, I was at her house again, and I accidentally left my phone recording in the kitchen while I went to get something from the car. I didn't mean to spy. I honestly just forgot it. But when I came back and listened to the recording later, I heard Alina talking to her sister about how she had actually stolen money from Mark's college fund years ago to cover her own gambling debts, and how she was planning to blame the missing wedding budget on my extravagant and hidden spending habits. She literally detailed how she was going to forge some bank statements to show Mark. I was shaking. I realized then that she wasn't just a mean mother-in-law. She was a criminal who was ready to destroy my life to save her own skin. So I started gathering my own evidence. I didn't tell Mark because I knew he wouldn't believe his mother could be that calculating without proof, and I didn't want to cause a rift until I had the smoking gun. I kept playing the part of the blushing bride, letting her think she was winning. I even let her take over the rehearsal dinner planning, which she insisted on hosting at this incredibly fancy, stuffy restaurant. She told me she wanted to give a special presentation for us. I knew exactly what that meant. So that's the situation I was in. I was facing a woman who was actively trying to frame me for theft and humiliate my family, all while pretending to be the perfect matriarch. Before I tell you how the rest of that night went and how I handled the big reveal, I want you to pause right here. Think about what you would do. If you found out your future mother-in-law was planning to frame you and humiliate you at your own wedding events, would you go to your fiancé immediately, Or would you wait to catch her in the act like I did? Let me know in the comments because I really need to know if I was being too vengeful. Anyway, the night of the rehearsal dinner arrived. I was a nervous wreck, but I hid it under a layer of expensive foundation and a forced smile. The room was packed with Mark's extended family, my parents, and our wedding party. Alina was in her element, flitting around like a queen bee. When it came time for the toasts, she stood up with this smug look on her face that I will never forget. She started off sweet, talking about Mark, but then she turned to me. She said, "You know, we all want the best for our children. And sometimes, the best involves being honest about who we bring into our inner circle." She then pulled out a projector screen, saying she wanted to show a tribute to our relationship. But instead of photos of us, she showed these doctored bank statements and photos of me meeting with a mysterious man, who was actually just my brother, whom she'd never bothered to meet, helping me pick out a gift for Mark. She started narrating, implying that I was draining Mark's accounts and seeing someone else. The room went silent. My mother looked like she was going to cry, and Mark looked completely lost. Alina looked at me and said, "I think we all deserve an explanation, don't we?" I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I stood up, walked over to the laptop she had hooked up to the projector, and said, "You're right, Alina. We do deserve the truth, but I think you played the wrong file. Let me help you." I plugged in my own USB drive. I had edited the recording of her admitting to stealing Mark's money, along with the footage from her own security cameras, which I had access to because I'd helped her set them up, showing her literally practicing her crying act in the mirror and talking about how much she hated my filthy parents. The audio filled the room. Everyone heard her voice, clear as day, bragging about the gambling debts and her plan to frame me. The silence that followed was deafening. Alina's face went from smug to ghostly white in 3 seconds. She tried to grab the laptop, but Mark stood up and blocked her. He looked at the screen, then at his mother, and I've never seen so much hurt and rage in someone's eyes. He didn't say a word to her. He just turned to me, took my hand, and apologized in front of everyone. He told his mother to leave and said she wasn't welcome at the wedding or in our lives. The aftermath was chaotic. Alina tried to play the victim, of course, claiming I hacked her or faked the audio, but the damage was done. Her own sister, who had heard the truth on the tape, walked out with us. My parents were vindicated, and Mark and I actually ended up having a beautiful, small ceremony the next day without the dark cloud of Alina hanging over us. We've been married for 6 months now, and we haven't spoken to her since. She's tried to send letters, but we return them to sender. Sometimes you have to fight fire with a full-blown inferno to protect your peace. I learned that you can't change a person who thrives on malice. You can only change how much power they have over you. Looking back, I don't regret a single thing. I saved my husband from a lifetime of manipulation and saved myself from being the villain in her twisted story. Like this video if you were on my side and think Alina got exactly what she deserved. Subscribe for more stories like this where the truth finally comes out, and please share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Did I go too far, or was it the perfect revenge? I'll see you all in the next story.